Hello and welcome. My name is Naveen and I am your host and the creator of the Hurt Lab podcast. Please come in, make yourself at home, and as you do, perhaps you might like to give some thought to the following for a moment. I wonder, is it fair to say that we live in a world obsessed with fixing? That at times we rarely make space for understanding. We rush to silence pain, to override discomfort, to make everything, in inverted commas, better. As if healing were a task to complete rather than a process to engage with. But what if you approached it differently? What if a space was created where you're not chasing quick fixes, no tidy, neat answers, and you're not looking for advice or some kind of self help? What if you saw pain not as something to erase, but something to explore? Could it be that the hurt you carry inside has something to say? And in many ways, that's what this space is about. Not self help slogans, not motivational mantras, but in many ways, the idea of the lab was for me a place where we can experiment, not necessarily to come up with solutions, but rather to put our perspectives on pain and hurt under a microscope, if you will, to get some clarity and better understanding of them. So you'll be glad to know I'm not here to lecture, but rather this place is a place of inquiry, curiosity, not instruction. In many ways, a lab could be defined as a place where things aren't polished or finished, but rather they're in flux, continuously in experimentation, in process. Here's what I know and understand. Hurt leaves a trace, and sometimes it's loud, like maybe grief that grabs you by the throat. Other times it's quiet, a slow ache in the background of our lives. But hurt doesn't always show up the way we expect it to. It can be loud or it can whisper. It's that moment you learned it wasn't safe to speak up. The way your stomach tightens in an argument or a conflict. The nights you couldn't name what was wrong, but you knew something was. The way I see it is that the body keeps the score, but it also carries the memory. It whispers what the mind tries to forget. You may try to outpace the pain. Because isn't that what we've been thought to do? To outrun, to outlift, to package it away in silence, sarcasm, perfection, or productivity. But what if pain isn't something to just heal from, but perhaps something to learn from as well? And what if the goal isn't to erase what hurt us, but to learn how to live with it perhaps, and maybe even grow because of it? Because what if pain does in fact leave traces, not just in our memories, but in our bodies, our breathing, our boundaries? To sit in the presence of people, all in all manner of pain, be it physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, whose pain changed the way they move through the world. What you learn is that sometimes just naming it, just being with it, is the bravest thing we can do. And for many of us, pain can begin quietly, not always in grand moments of trauma, but maybe in the subtle ways we're taught to shrink ourselves, to pronounce our names differently so others feel at ease, to absorb the discomfort in the room so it doesn't spill onto anyone else. Maybe sometimes it's a comment, a look, a silence that says more than words ever could. And then over time, these moments gather layer upon layer until we can't quite tell whether we're carrying ourselves or carrying the version of ourselves that made others more comfortable. It's not always dramatic, sometimes it's just deeply familiar. This quiet agreement we make with the world to be a little less us in order to be a little more accepted, perhaps. And someone once told me, Naveen, you are a human being, not a human doing. And so I've had to unlearn the idea that pain makes me weak. Pain makes me pay attention. And yet, somewhere between the shame and the silence, something unexpected bubbles up inside of us. A resilience, perhaps? And is resilience always loud? It often begins in those moments when we want to step back, to retreat, to shut down, to protect, but something inside us leans forward. Maybe you felt it. That moment when life turns up the heat, when the terrain gets steep and your mind whispers, I can't do this. It's too much. But what is happening to your body at a deeper level? Is there perhaps a momentum shift on the horizon if we give ourselves permission to be okay with movement, to get up, get up? Not because it's easy, but because something in you knows. But you could turn around and say, Naveen, isn't that what they say, that growth lives just past the edge of what's comfortable? Maybe. But this isn't about pushing through blindly, it's about learning to recognize the difference between pain that signals danger and pain that signals transformation. It's in the quiet decision to keep showing up to yourself and for yourself, to your healing, even when it is hard. I think more so, especially when it is hard. So maybe you're here because something is stirring. Maybe something unspoken is ready to rise to the surface, or maybe you're just curious. So, this space, this lab, this podcast, it's not just a conversation, it's a kind of movement that has a rhythm, a pulse. Each episode we'll look at exploring, examining, and experimenting with different perspectives, hypotheses on the aspects of hurt, be it personal, cultural, relational, historical, the list could go on and on. We'll ask, what's underneath the pain? What stories did we have to bury to survive? And what happens when we start to listen? The way I feel about it is that there's no one way to heal, but there is power in asking better questions. So, wherever you're tuning in from, whether you're sprinting into your day or curled up in a quiet corner, you are welcome. In many ways, you have a free pass to get on, get off, come back again. There is no judgment, just presence, where we make space for the messy, the meaningful, and the magnificent in our pain. And if today all you do is listen, then that's more than enough. This is the Hurt Lab. So I'd ask you to be kind to your hurt, as it may be telling you something about your heart. And by way of a disclaimer, the content in this podcast is purely for educational and reflective purposes only. It's not a substitute for professional therapy or mental health support. If you're in distress, please reach out to a qualified professional or support service in your area. And until we meet again, thank you for listening. I'm Naveen, and this has been the Hurt Lab Podcast.